Sir, how effective is the current US-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid mechanism in meeting the urgent needs of Gaza's population, and what are its main shortcomings?
Good afternoon to you and to the dear viewers. Of course, there are a lot of shortcomings and a lot of incidents at the political and military level in Israel to implement the mechanism and to distribute the very limited humanitarian aid volume on 2 million Palestinians who have been suffering since the beginning of the war up till now. Once the humanitarian aid entered, they haven't been entered for now more than 3 months after closing all the crossings. The volume of humanitarian aid is very limited compared to the humanitarian needs in Gaza. There must be around 500 to 600 trucks daily entered, whether food, water, or pharmaceuticals and medicines, or consumer goods. And therefore, the US Foundation and Israel might have been deliberate to distribute these aids in some border areas or completely destructed areas. Therefore, the Rafah city that has been exploded 75,000 kilometers, only a few buildings are left standing. Around 85 to 90% of the infrastructure were completely destroyed. And the Israeli military now is planning to take in the entire population, either into custody or for integration, or to search for resilience elements to be arrested or liquidated. The Israeli plan did not succeed, and the officials or the staff of the US Foundation were not able to control the mass starvation who and the people who are looking for a piece of bread for their children, and therefore there was a chaos. Um, Israel was well aware of this chaos, and they knew that it was going to happen, and large numbers of the population would actually um, go for these very limited aid that is not even a drop in an ocean compared to the humanitarian aid.
Got your point, sir. Sir, what impact does Israel's 11-week blockade and the new military-controlled aid system have on the humanitarian situation and civilian dignity in Gaza at this point, sir, which is a very critical point?
The starvation policy adopted by Israel, along with the killing by shelling policy, is very serious, a violation to all human rights, and there has been no humanitarian aid entry for more than 3 months now. In the Gaza Strip, the starvation spread, and we have a lot of malnutritious kids, and the elderly are dying due to the lack of medicines and lack of food. Pregnant women now are undergoing abortion or even death due to the lack of food and proper nutrition. Newborns and young children were not able to survive because they did not receive the vaccines they're due, and there is also lack of clean water or clean drinking water. All that is there in the Gaza Strip is only sanitation water that is barely usable, and also the hospitals, most hospitals are now out of service due to the bombing, and therefore Israel is deliberate to destroy any form of infrastructure, and especially the hospitals, and they forbade the entry of any medical equipment, including ambulances and social protection staff. And the ambulance incident where 15 social protection staff were killed in Rafah is an example of the Israeli violations as they hindered the humanitarian aid access, which impacted 2 million Palestinians living now in starvation and constant killing by the Israeli powers. And all of that is only political pressure by Israel to force the Palestinian population to evacuate the Gaza Strip and displace and then take control over Gaza, as stated by Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and Netanyahu, following their plan to occupy the entire territories of the Gaza Strip, evacuate its people, and minimize their lands. And therefore, the campaign or the Israeli military scheme in the Gaza Strip now only aims to have two objectives. The first, starving the population to evacuate, and second, to occupy the entire territories of the Strip, eliminating the resistance altogether and disarming them. All of these objectives have failed, and so far, in spite of the starvation and the constant killing, the Palestinian population want to remain on their lands in spite of the lack of food and water, as the Israeli occupation targets that, particularly Israel targeted 63 community kitchens that used to provide food for mass populations, which means that they only want to either kill the population or evacuate them. Targeting these community kitchens is a systematic Israeli scheme that is deliberate, also targeting the food storages, and the UNRWA storages was a deliberate goal, and it was thoroughly planned, and not opening and not assigning the aid distribution to the UNRWA was pre-planned by Israel and the United States to undermine the UNRWA role, which is the only entity able to distribute aid inside Gaza, and they have the capable, talented staff to work all over Gaza, and therefore Israel targeted them and targeted the Gaza Strip from several military and social and even demographic aspects.